नाही आम्ही काल समोरच्या समोरच बोलणं झालं ना, इव्हन जागेपासून सगळं बोलणं झालं. बरोबर की नाही? हं, हं. नाही ह्याचा तर मेन केलेला आहे तुमच्या एअरपोर्ट बेंचेसचा मेन केलेला आहे. बरं बरं. Yes. हो 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 हो. Yes. नाही आता मी सरांना सांगतो आता नाही म्हणतो सर तेवढी एक मेल लिहून टाका. हं, हं, हं. सर त्यांच्या डायरेक्टरांनी एप्रिल मार्च एप्रिलचं बिल पेंडिंग केलं. कसं आहे सर आपण त्यांना तुमचं अगोदर जर केलं असेल अगोदर कसं असेल की अर्धी कन्फर्म करा अर्धी कन्फर्म करा असं किती नव्हते गव्हर्नमेंट संपणार आणि हे कॉन्ट्रॅक्ट आहे ना तो कधीच ऐकणार पण ते बघितलं मी आपण आम्ही सांगितलं की हॅलो हा बोला हां 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 चालतं की सर हो 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 चालतं माझा आवाज येतो का मॅडम? तुम्ही अनम्यूट करा. एक मिनिट.
हॅलो.
एकदम क्लिअर येतो.
हॅलो, आवाज येतोय?
एकदम क्लिअर येतो.
ओके. Good morning, everybody. We'll start the session within 5 minutes. I'm waiting for the participants to join the session. The session is on disaster preparedness in hospitals. Myself, program in charge, Dr. Sanika Deshmukh, will be hosting this session. Wait for a few minutes to start the session. Yes, now I start with the session. The session is on disaster preparedness in hospital. Session presented by Dr. Sanika Deshmukh, the program in charge for certificate program in disaster management for hospital and healthcare organization. Now I will tell you what is disaster. Now a disaster is defined as a serious disruption of the functioning of the society. It causes widespread human, material, and environmental losses. In disaster, there is human, material, and environmental losses, which exceed the ability of the affected society to cope using its own resources. So what is a disaster? A disaster is a serious disruption of the functioning of the society, causing widespread human, material, and environmental losses, which exceed the ability of the affected society to cope using its own resources. A disaster occurs when a hazard may be natural or man-made, strikes a vulnerable society. So where does a disaster occur? Disaster occur when a hazard, this hazard may be natural or man-made, strikes a vulnerable society. I'll tell you about what is vulnerability. Vulnerability is defined as the extent to which a community, structure, service, or the geographical area is likely to be damaged or disrupted by the impact of a particular hazard on account of their nature, construction, or proximity to a hazard-prone area. So that is about vulnerability. Next, I will tell you about what is risk. Risk is a measure of the expected losses due to a hazard of a particular magnitude striking in a given area. So what is risk? Risk is a measure of the expected losses. The losses may be deaths, injuries, property, economic losses. So all these type of losses are there during this disaster, and it is measured due to a hazard of a particular magnitude striking in a given area. So what is risk? Risk is a measure of the expected losses due to a hazard. Hazard may be in the losses may be in the form of deaths, injuries, property, economic losses, etc. due to a hazard of a particular magnitude striking in a given area. They are hazards which are natural, such as earthquakes, floods, landslides, cyclones, etc. So these are natural hazards. Or man-made such as exposure to hazardous material, explosions, etc. So these are man-made hazards. Location of hazard relative to the community at risk. And exposure, the effect of hazard on infrastructure and lifeline system serving the population, such as water supply, communication, transportation, network, etc. That is exposure. Exposure is the effect of hazard on infrastructure, lifeline system serving the population, such as water supply, communication, transport, network, etc. Vulnerability of the exposed society, structure and systems to the hazard. I explained you in the previous slide about vulnerability. Vulnerability is defined as the extent to which a community, structure, service, or geographical area is likely to be damaged or disrupted by the impact of particular hazard on account of their nature, construction, or proximity to a hazard-prone area. So vulnerability of the exposed society, structure, and systems to the hazard. So this is about risk. Now, how can we reduce this risk? Very important, and we should reduce this risk. Risk reduction can be done in two ways, that is preparedness and mitigation. What is preparedness? Preparedness encompasses all those measures taken before a disaster event, which is aimed at minimizing loss of life, disruption of critical services, and damage when the disaster occurs. So in preparedness, what is done? Measures are taken before a disaster in minimizing loss of life, disruption of critical services, and damage when the disaster occurs. All this is taken care in preparedness. Next is about mitigation. Mitigation encompasses all measures taken to reduce effects of hazards, vulnerable condition, and it reduces the losses in future disaster. So mitigation encompasses all measures taken to reduce both the effect of hazards itself and the vulnerable conditions in order to reduce the losses in a future disaster. So it reduces the losses in future disaster. That is mitigation. Now we go to role of hospitals in disaster. Very important. Hospital plays a critical role in healthcare infrastructure. Hospitals have a primary responsibility of saving lives. They provide 24/7 emergency care services, and hence public perceive it as a vital resource for diagnosis, treatment, and follow-up for both physical and psychological care. Hospitals are central to provide emergency care, and hence when a disaster strikes hospitals provide immediate succor in the form of emergency medical care. So this is the vital role of hospital. It provides 24/7 emergency care, very important in treatment, diagnosis, follow-up, both physical as well as psychological. And hospitals provide this emergency care in disaster. Now I'll tell you about the hospital categorization. For convenience, the hospitals are categorized as based on the number of casualties. The hospitals are categorized. Categorization, it differs from hospital to hospital and depends on several factors such as the number of doctors and nurses available and the availability of supplies and support services. So this categorization, it varies and it depends on the number of doctors and nurses available and the availability of supplies and support services. Now, category 1. In category 1, up to 30 patients belonging to a single accident or any other emergency coming to a hospital casualty at one time. So that is category 1, up to 30%. Now category 2, that is 30 to 50 patients belonging to a single accident or any other emergency coming to a hospital casualty at one time. So that is category 2, 30 to 50 patients. And category 3 is more than 50 patients belonging to a single accident or emergency coming to the hospital casualty at one time. So this is categorization according to number of casualties. Category 1 up to 30 patient, category 2 30 to 50 patient, and category 3 more than 50 patients belonging to a single accident coming to the hospital at a time. Now, based on this type of casualties, again categorization of patient is done. So category A, the patient in critical condition. Very important, the patient in critical condition is category A, which requires immediate treatment is required in category A. Next category is patient in serious but not life-threatening condition. Yes, they also require attention. This is category B. He is in serious condition, but not life-threatening. Category A is life-threatening. Now category C is walking wounded. So they can, we can wait. Category C, you can wait. You can first attend category A, then category B, and then category C patient in disaster. So this categorization is done for convenience. I'll tell you what is triage. Triage is the process of sorting injured people into groups based on the severity of the condition. When in disaster, there are a group of patients which are coming. Sorting is very important. So that is called as triage. In triage, sorting injured people into groups. So groups are made. These groups are based on the severity of the condition of the patient. According to severity, the groups are made. And patient are color coded. So according to severity, groups are made, and these groups are color coded. What color codes are given? I'll explain you. According to the kind of treatment they deserve. So this, what you can explain, what is triage? Triage is what? Sorting the injured patient. In disaster, there is sorting the injured patient into groups based on the severity of the condition. Patient will be color coded according to the kind of treatment they deserve. Now there are various color codes in this. Now in this category 1, that is obvious life-threatening emergency. Immediate resuscitation is required. That is red color code is there. The physician shall examine the patient with zero delay. That is immediate resuscitation is required. That is without any delay. Examples like cardiac arrest, continuous seizures, acute severe chest pain, hematemesis, sudden loss of consciousness, major trauma with hypotension. So all this comes in this red color code, that is 1, category 1. I repeat, in category 1, there is obvious life-threatening emergency is there and immediate resuscitation is required, which is colored red. The physician shall examine the patient immediately with zero delay. Examples like cardiac arrest, continuous seizures, acute severe chest pain, hematemesis, sudden loss of consciousness, major trauma with hypotension, all etc. All this come in category 1. Now I go to category 2. In category 2, there is potential for life-threatening injuries, which is colored yellow. The possibility of an occult or pending emergency condition, although some of these patients initially may appear to have no so serious chief complaint. About 25% of these patients have high-risk conditions. The patient shall be fully evaluated and treated by the physician within 10 minutes of arrival, since there could be potential instability to the vital signs. Case examples are like dyspnea, high fever, acute abdominal pain, acute confusion, severe pain, serious extremity injuries, large lacerations, etc. So this is category 2. I repeat, category 2 is potentially life-threatening injuries, which is colored yellow, and they also should be attended by the physician within 10 minutes of arrival, since there could be potential instability to the vital signs. Examples are like dyspnea, fever, high fever, acute abdominal pain, large lacerated wounds, then severe pain, large extremity injuries may be there to serious extent. So all this comes in category 2. Next, go to category 3, which is a non-life-threatening emergency, which is colored green. These patients' presentation need emergency care but provide no reason to consider the possibility of threat to the life or limb. This patient shall be seen by an emergency management physician on a first-come, first-served basis in consultation room. Examples like chronic, minor or self-limiting disorders, medication, then skin disorders, mild adult upper respiratory tract symptoms, mild sore throat, blood pressure, checking of blood pressure. So all this is to a mild extent. So they can be later on consulted in the OPD or checked in the OPD later on. So that is category number 3. Now I go to category number 4, which is black or white, where the patient is brought dead. So you can, very important is category 1, immediate resuscitation, category 2, which is potentially life-threatening injuries, category 3, they are walking wounded, green, and category 4, that is they are brought dead. I will tell you about the aims and objectives of Hospital Disaster Management Plan. First we go to aims of the aim of the Hospital Disaster Plan is to provide prompt and effective medical care to the maximum possible in order to minimize morbidity and mortality resulting from this mass casualty incident. In mass casualty incident, it is very important. Objectives and goals of a hospital disaster management plan. The main objective of the hospital emergency or disaster plan is to optimally prepare the staff and institutional resources of the hospital for effective performance in different disaster situations. So very important is to prepare the staff and the resources, both is to be prepared in hospital in different disaster situations. So that is very important point. Next is to address the mass casualties which may result from mass casualty incident that has occurred away from the hospital. So the staff and they should be prepared in such a way that they can address the mass casualties which may result from mass casualty incidents that has occurred away from the hospital. And third important is to address the situation where the hospital itself has been affected by a disaster. Means the disaster occurs in the hospital itself. So the staff should be trained in such a way that they can address immediately. For example, a fire, explosion, flooding, or earthquake in the hospital. So this all should be addressed by the hospital itself. Next, we come to aims of the hospital disaster management plan. What is the aim is to provide prompt and effective medical care by the hospital staff. Very important. And to minimize morbidity and mortality resulting from any mass casualty incident. So what is the aim of hospital disaster management plan is to provide prompt and effective medical care and to minimize morbidity as well as mortality which is resulting from any mass casualty incident. Now we go to next slide, that is the principles of a hospital disaster plan. What are the principles of hospital disaster plan? First is it should be predictable. That is, the hospital disaster plan should have a predictable chain of management. It should be well set. That is, it should be simple. The plan should be simple and operational. Everybody should understand, everybody should operate it easily. That is simple and operationally functional. Then it should be flexible. What is flexible? The plan should have organized charts, very important. Organized charts are very important in hospital. The plan should be executable for various forms and dimensions of different disasters. Then it should be concise, that is clear definition of authority should be given. The plan should specify various roles, responsibilities, work relationships of administrative and the technical groups. So everything should be clearly mentioned in this. Then the plan should be comprehensive. That is what do we mean by comprehensive? Compatible with various hospitals. It should be comprehensive enough to look at the network of various other healthcare facilities along with formulation of an inter-hospital transfer policy in the event of a disaster. It should be adaptable. Adaptable is, although the disaster plan is intended to provide standard procedures which may be followed with little thought, it is not complete if there is no space for adaptability. So it is complete only when there is adaptability. Then anticipatory. All hospital plans should be made considering the worst case scenarios. So how the plan should be made? Considering the worst case scenarios so that they can handle the worst cases. Part of a regional health plan in disasters A hospital cannot be a lone entity making its plan in isolation. The hospital plans have to be integrated with the regional plan for proper implementation. So very important, the hospital plans have to be integrated with the regional plan for proper implementation. So very important, what are the principles? In short, principles of hospital plan should be that the hospital disaster plan should be predictable, simple, flexible, concise, comprehensive, adaptable, anticipatory, and even the regional hospitals should be considered during implementation of the plan. Now about the hospital disaster planning. Now we proceed for this planning of the hospital. It is recommended that the hospital administrators embark upon hospital planning using a phase plan. So we are using a phase plan. The hospital emergency planning can be divided into 3 phases: pre-disaster phase, disaster phase, and the post-disaster phase. So you can go according to these phases. What is pre-disaster phase? What is covered in the pre-disaster phase? Very important is planning. Most of the assessments and planning is done in the pre-disaster phase. The hospital plans are formulated and then discussed in a suitable forum for approval. So that comes under planning. The disaster manual. The hospital disaster plan should be written down in a document form, and copies of the same should be available in all the areas of the hospital. So what is disaster manual? Hospital disaster plan should be written down and documented, and the copies of the same should be available in all areas of the hospital. Next is staff education and training, which is very important. All the staff should know about and get trained in using the hospital disaster manual. Regular staff training by suitable drills should be undertaken in this phase. So very important in pre-disaster phase. What is important is planning, disaster manual, and staff education and training comes in pre-disaster phase. Next we come to the disaster phase. In disaster phase, there is phase of activation, alter, and notification of emergency. So notification of emergency is done in this phase of activation. Activation of the chain of command in the hospital. Operational phase. This is the phase in which the actual tackling of mass casualties is performed according to the disaster plan. The next is the phase of deactivation, an important phase of the hospital emergency plan when the administrator or the command of the hospital is satisfied that the influx of mass casualty victims is not continuing to overwhelm the hospital facilities. So in the disaster phase, what it consists of is the phase of activation of the chain of command in the hospital. The operational phase and the phase of deactivation is covered in this disaster phase. Last is the post-disaster phase. This is an important phase of disaster planning where the activities of the disaster phase are discussed and the inadequacies are noted down for future improvement. Very important. All the activities in disaster planning are noted down and discussed, and the inadequacies are noted down for further improvements. So that comes in the post-disaster phase. Now, hospital emergency plans done in pre-disaster phase. Most of the planning of hospital emergency plans is done in the pre-disaster phase. It is recommended that all hospitals providing emergency care should start planning for the worst at the earliest. It is always good to have a ready working plan before next emergency strikes. Hospital Disaster Management Committee has to be formed. Formation of disaster committee is the first step for making a disaster plan for the hospital. Most of the hospitals already have such hospital committee, management committee. Therefore, an emergency or disaster management committee can be carved out from such already existing committees. The members of the disaster management committee should be from following basic facilities of the hospital. Very important is the central command structure for hospitals. In order to ensure effective control and avoid duplication of action, there should be a unified command system, which should be based on the individual hospital hierarchical chain. The advantage of this incident command structure are many. It is predictable chain of management, flexible organization charts, allowing flexible response to specific emergencies, prioritized response checklist, accountability of position function, improved documentation, common language to promote communications and facilitate outside assistance, cost-effective emergency planning within the hospital. So all that is covered in this command, central command structure for hospitals. Next is the plan activation of different areas of hospitals. The areas which should be mentioned, which are mentioned in the hospital emergency plan are command center, communication office or paging, hotline area, telephone exchange, that is communications in the hospital, security, that is office or police chowki, reception and triage area, decontamination area if needed, minor treatment areas, acute care area, emergency department, definitive care areas, that is OTs and wards, intensive treatment area, and activation of high dependency units, mortuary, holding area for relatives non-injured, area for holding media briefings, separate media, PRO or spokespersons in room, area for holding patients in case a part of the hospital is evacuated. All these areas should be mapped on the outlay map of the hospital. The normal capacities of the existing areas should be mentioned on these maps, and hence admissions of patients requires or engagement of suitable spots if necessary, even by changing their function. So all this should be mapped. Planning, then additional is planning for security of hospitals in emergency situations. Then logistic planning, planning for communication, then internet telephone exchange, landline phones. So all this comes in logistic. Private mobile, cell phones, mobile phones, loudspeakers, wireless set for security, communication room, all this is logistic planning. Transportation to and fro the site from the hospital. Transportation is necessary in emergency situation, mainly to bring the patient from the site to the mass casualty incident to the hospital. Transport is also required to transfer patient to other hospital if the facilities at the hospital in question are overwhelmed or is unable to perform its function due to internal damage. The transport room or driver should be also have a telephone or any other means of communication like mobile, like wireless, to remain in touch with the control room. Very important. Then store planning, personal planning, which is medical and non-medical. Then other plannings are the operations planning, essential medical, non-medical, essential ancillary services like lab, radiology, and pharmacy. In laboratory, the department head will call in their own personnel as needed after reporting to the command center. Call personnel from nearby hospitals and clinics as necessary. Have arrangements made to obtain additional blood, very important, equipments and supplies from area agencies. In radiology services, department head arrange for extra supplies to be brought in if needed. Coordinate flow of work and delegate of work areas. Other members of radiology staff will perform all X-rays, exams, CT scan, ultrasound, etc. as needed and assigned. Blood bank. In blood bank, as and when blood is required, all the work should be done in the blood bank so that making availability of blood, the groups which are required should be done by the blood bank. Mortuary services, care for the dead. Mortuary should be situated away from the main entrance. It should not be near the entrance. It should be away from the main entrance of the hospital. It should be adequately staffed with senior forensic specialist appointed for that purpose. Patients pronounced dead on arrival should be tagged with a disaster tag, and the body should be sent to mortuary. Now, next phase is the phase of staff education and training, which is very important. Training of this disaster plan and everything should be given to the hospital staff. Then hospital dietary services, that is the kitchen. The department head needed, after reporting to command center, prepared to serve nourishments to ambulatory patient, in-house patients, and personnel as need arise. Utilize additional areas for extra eating space. Be responsible for setting up menus in disaster situation and maintain adequate supplies. Sanitation services, adequate sanitation services within and around the hospital should be ensured by the hospital administrator. Hospital laundry and sterile supply. The hospital administration should ensure adequate supply of clean hospital linen, sterile dressing, and sterile supply of instruments to the essential areas of the hospital. Essential services are water. Adequate provision should be made to meet the additional requirement of water. Planning should be perfect related to storage tanks for water or tube light, then the tube light power, electricity. So all this should be checked well in advance. Light, the power supply, provide enough light and power for essential areas of the hospital like emergency department, the operation theater, the ICUs, etc. Illuminated light is there, ventilation is there, so everything has to be checked previously only. And as I mentioned, there should be staff education and training should be given. Once the disaster plan is ready, the training to the staff should be given. Next is in the phase of disaster activation, alert and mobilization phase. Plans for alerting the disaster committee, staff, other facilities via phones or mobilizing resources to appropriate activated areas. Several critical areas must occur in this phase. The hospital administration must appoint an incident commander. The incident commander must not be expected to carry out any patient care, logistical security, or any other activities. However, it must be free to command and coordinate the overall disaster response. Hospital administrator must choose the most competent person to be the incident commander. An emergency department physician with emergency medical services and disaster experience would be ideal, but the incident command need not be a physician, nurse, or administrator. For example, if a security chief from another hospital just happens to be visiting and has managed many hospital disasters before, the hospital administration could appoint him as an incident commander. So this is an example. The incident commander inherits authority directly from the hospital administration. The hospital incident commander's job is to direct all aspects of the hospital's participation in the disaster operation, the effectiveness of the hospital in his responsibility. Now in the incident staff, the purpose of incident staff is to provide enough manpower to meet the disaster relief operation. Manpower to meet all his or her responsibilities in conducting the disaster relief operation. This frees him or her to carry out the incident command's primary function of overall supervision, development and implementation of strategic decisions, approving the requesting and releasing of resources, and liaison with the hospital administration and any other participating agencies. For a small disaster operation, the hospital incident command may discharge some or all of the incident staff duties himself or herself, but a large disaster operation might have an incident staff number of members which can vary. A staff consisting of the 7 positions most appropriate for a medium-sized disaster by grouping all hospital-related incident command structure functions into these 7 positions as an ideal incident command system which is required. The various positions are in the operation chief. The operation chief in the phase of disaster required are very important is the medical care, emergency department in patient care areas, surgical services, critical care unit should be there. So in medical care, the emergency department, inpatient areas, surgical services, critical care units. So this is covered in operation chief. Then the ancillary services, which consists of laboratory services, radiology services, pharmacy services, and mortuary services. Then comes to human services, which consists of psychological support as well as social work support. Logistic chief. Logistic chief, his responsibilities are related to communication system, the transportation, the dietary services, stores, sanitation, water and power supply. So all these responsibilities are taken by the logistic chief. Now the planning chief plans related to the manpower planning, making rosters for the following staff, medical staff, the nursing staff, the group C and D staff. Next is the liaison officer who looks into the police, the ambulance services, the defense medical services, arrangement of railways, blood banks or other ancillary medical services in the area. Then the security and fire officer, which is activating and alerting all the security staff, mobilizing staff to areas like hospital gate, emergency department, etc. Then the finance officer who does the allocation of emergency funds, facilitating emergency purchases if needed, and the public information officer, that is the public relation officer, who does dissemination of all the information, medical or otherwise, to the relatives coming to the hospital as well as to the media. So that is role of the public relation officer. Now about the post-disaster debriefing. What is debriefing? Very important. Importance of debriefing exercises as a part of planning cannot be stressed further. Debriefing is a process in which the disaster committee sits down after the disaster has been deactivated and tries to figure out how things went. It can be best described as a critical self-review of one hospital's own performance during a disaster. What went right is taken cognizance and what went wrong is further incorporated into the disaster plans. So what is done by this, what is there in debriefing is what went right, cognizance is taken, and what went wrong is further incorporated into the disaster plan to improve the plan. So that is in post-disaster debriefing. In short, about the emergency plan for hospitals, there is pre-disaster planning phase, which consists of disaster management committee, center command structure, the jobs card, plan activation of different areas of the hospital, disaster beds, how to increase the bed capacity in emergencies, planning of public information and liaising, for planning for security, logistic planning, which includes communication, transportation, store, personnel, financial, and operations planning, which includes the essential medical and non-medical staff education, the triage, activation of nursing staff, activation of ancillary services, and activation of support services. Next, very important, is the phase of staff education and training. I'll tell you about the training. Training of the staff, which is very important. All hospital staff shall regularly be oriented to the hospital disaster management plan, especially each time the plan is updated or modified. Hospital staff who will implement shall be trained every alternate month. So very important, they should be trained every alternate month. Next is they are trained as master trainers with understanding of training outcomes in terms of examination. So they should be trained as master trainers with clear understanding of the training outcomes in terms of examination. Practice evaluations shall be documented for inspection. Specialized need-based training to perform specific functions planned and executed for different categories of staff of the hospital. The regular training and capacity building of the staff capacity and competency in providing high demand clinical services during emergencies. So all this comes in training of the staff. About the drills, every hospital or healthcare facility shall conduct periodic drills and rehearsals to test the response capacities to emergencies in real time and serve as opportunities for practical learning for the hospital staff. There are several types of drills, hospital drills, which is carried out, which include computer simulations, tabletop exercises, and operationalized drills, including specific victim scenarios. In tabletop exercises is a paper drill intended to demonstrate the working and communication relationship of functions found within the disaster management organizational plan. Now, how will the hospital ensure proper planning is done or training is given and about the drills? The hospital should ensure hazard vulnerability assessment of the hospital. That is, the hospital should ensure that the hazard vulnerability assessment of the hospital and hospital capacity analysis precede the development of the hospital disaster management plan. Next is meticulously plan for each of the critical functions of the hospital disaster preparedness and response. Next is to develop standards, protocols or guidelines for all aspects of hospital disaster preparedness and response. Regularly conduct trainings for the hospital staff involved in hospital disaster preparedness and response. Test the hospital disaster management plan by simulation exercises. Conduct periodic disaster drills or exercises to improve the disaster preparedness and the response capability of the hospitals. Regularly update and revise the hospital disaster management plan to meet the changing and emerging scenarios. So all this is covered, is ensured by the hospital. Next, very important is documentation. Why this documentation is required? All medical legal cases should be recorded. To meet the surge of cases, additional medical records assistant or technician shall be posted for the medical records section. Computerized documentation or manual will be beneficial for the staff, police, next to of kin and the press. So all this is required for documentation is required for this. Details of the casualties received and been admitted should be recorded, which in clinical condition, then color coordinated classification status by triage, then the credible database, efficient retrieval of information to cater to any post-incident treatment or medical, legal or financial issues arising at later date. So that is, last is the details of casualties should be noted down. I'll tell you what is surge capacity for medical response. Surge capacity is the ability of a health service to expand beyond normal capacity to meet increased demand for clinical care. In disaster, there is need of surge capacity. Every hospital shall calculate their surge capacity early in the planning. The objective of planning for surge capacity shall undertake the following activities during a disaster event. They should conduct a situation assessment. They should collect, evaluate, disseminate and use information of the event or incident. They should develop information with regards to the hospital's current status with respect to the event or incident and to assist in the development of contingency plans. Yes, now I've finished with my presentation. I've covered the disaster preparedness plan in hospitals. And if there is any query, you can write in the chat box. I'll try to solve your queries. Any questions? You can write in the chat box. I'll try to solve your queries. Yes, we have 10 minutes additional to solve queries. If there are any queries, I'll solve the queries. Please write in the chat box. Yes, any questions? Any queries? Yes, yes. You can post by if you have any query, you can mail me. I'll tell you my email ID is medcare@. Yes, yes. medcare@ssodl.edu.in. Myself, Dr. Sanika Deshmukh, program in charge for this. and you can send me the mail. I'll reply. And thank you everyone for listening to this. And if whatever queries you have, I am there to help you. And you all have a office contact number. You can call on that number if you want to discuss. And if you can mail related to this topic, if you have any query, you can mail me. I'll reply on mail. So now we end this session, and thank you everybody. Thank you.